Hi, welcome to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. My name is Ariyl. I'm joined today by my beautiful and lovely co-host, Melody. How are you, Mel?
Doing good.
We are doing something brand new, first time ever. I'm so excited to do this, and I'm so excited for the people who are doing it with us because they're very forgiving. Today we are doing what is called a roundtable discussion. We are going to be talking about learning to socialize normally. For everybody, please let me repeat, air quotes, normally after leaving a cult. I would like to welcome our guest, Erin. How are you today, Erin?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me back.
Of course. And Gary, how are you doing today, Gary?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
All right. So how this is going to play out is I'm just going to ask each one of you a question. You answer it to however you would like, and then we'll move on to the next person. If you are not comfortable answering the question, as always, ask us to skip or to move on until you're ready, okay? I will not partake of this unless I got something to add on to it. And of course, we all know me, I always like to add on. We would like for you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page and go to our Facebook page, Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We ready, guys?
Yep.
Mel, I'm going to go with you first to give them time, but that
Okay.
doesn't mean I'm going to go first next time, guys, so be ready.
Okay.
All right. Melody, while you were in the cult or after leaving the cult, what was it like for you to explain to people your beliefs or why you believed?
Well, I think for me that I was very hesitant to share my beliefs when I first got out, because when I first got out, I didn't know what the hell I believed for a while. I felt like everything that I believed kind of fell out from under me. And so I was, and I think I'd spent so many years in the house of Yahweh having this attitude that I thought I knew all the answers. And I thought I knew all the answers of biblical and spiritual questions, that when I realized that everything I thought I knew I didn't know, I realized that I really knew much less than what I thought. So I was much less eager to answer or jump into those type of questions, and I was more of a sit back and listen type of person, which was not which, as anybody who watches the show knows, is not totally my personality, or anybody who knows me. But it was more of this thing where I had to kind of switch gears for myself. Because of that, I kind of had to think of religion and spirituality in a little bit of a different way, and I wasn't so open about it because I didn't really know where I stand. And I think I have better idea through time. I kind of know where I stand now, and I'm a little bit easier to talk about it, but I'm also much more open and much more open and accepting of different ideas than my own. Like, this is what I think, this is what I believe, but it's okay if you don't think or believe or see it the same way.
Okay. Erin, do you need me to repeat the question?
It is, how did I explain to people outside my beliefs?
Yes, outside of the cult, whether you were there or after you left, why you believe the things you believe.
Well, I think just like Melody, I don't think I talked as much, but I think that I did have this kind of feeling inside of me that we were right. So I didn't really feel like I needed to explain myself so much. And I think that I knew like different reasons why, and the creator didn't look at this, so we're not going to do that. This is pagan. But I don't think I explained myself too much. And then by the time we had left, I didn't really get back into the world for a while. It took me a few years, and those were the years that I was still doing a lot of the same things. So I don't think I really had to explain myself too much. The people that I knew were the people who I already knew kind of growing up with. And since I had grown up there, they were just kind of used to me being that way. And I did become more of a listener. I would, like I said in my last interview, like I would invite anybody in to talk to me about religion or spirituality or anything, because I just needed to figure it out. And I think I was more seeking at the time when we left than trying to be still right, which I did think I was right while we were there. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Garry.
While we were there, I was young and I was in school, and of course, kids always have questions, and I was always very hesitant to talk about it because I was ashamed of it and I didn't want people to know. So I would always avoid the questions from then. But once I got out, I kind of the same way. I just I didn't know, what I thought about it. I hadn't really ever had my own thoughts about it. It was always, what was told to me. So, to tell people what I would believe, it was kind of hard because I didn't know what I believed in. And it's kind of taken me some time to figure that out for myself. And I guess that's it.
So I'm actually going to add to this to you three, because I actually had a different perspective than all three of you.
Okay.
Praying, spirituality, a relationship with their Heavenly Father has always been, as far back as I can remember, in my life. So when I left, I was shook to the very core about, per se, religion or about holidays or eating pork. But I knew what my foundation stood on. I had a strong foundation. And I actually, from a Bible story in the scriptures, which is about Job, and he never denied the Creator. So I didn't go to church, any church. I didn't proclaim to be a Protestant or Catholic or Baptist or anything like that. But I kept my relationship with the Creator as the Creator or my Heavenly Father, and I spoke to Him. So when people would ask me, well, how do you feel about this or how do you feel about that? I would always tell them, A, I don't believe in religion, and I still don't believe in man-made religion. B, I do have a relationship with my Creator. And I stand on the foundation of prayer and being kind and doing unto others as you would have done to you. So but I had that foundation before I went in to the house. So I think that's why I was, per se, blessed. When I left, I still was able to have that underlining foundation.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So I think that helped me out a little bit. Okay, on to question number 2. Everybody comfortable? Everybody good?
Yep.
All right, Gary, you're up.
All right.
What did it feel like after you left the house of Yahweh? It's a 2-part question. What did it feel like after you left the house of Yahweh and the first time you did not keep Sabbath and the first time you broke the food laws, whether you were still in or out of the house?
The food laws I broke way before I left. My first job, I worked at Waffle House when I was 16. That was my very first job I ever had. And I just went on to cook at other places beyond that. And, when you're cooking, you have to taste the food to know what you're cooking. And so I remember the first time I ever tasted real bacon after only ever having turkey bacon my entire life. And it was like a life-changing experience. And so, that was never really the food laws, I kind of, was flexible on that anyways. And the Sabbath was actually, I worked at Applebee's when I left the house of Yahweh to begin with. And I remember telling my boss that he could schedule me for Friday night. And that was even weird. I remember walking in and everybody's like, clapped that I walked in on a Friday night, like before the rush. Usually I would come in like after the rush is over. They're like, I'd come in to help clean up. And so that was the first time. It wasn't really that big of a thing, really.
Okay, Erin, what about for you?
So, the food laws I wouldn't be able to really speak on because I didn't ever go like, it's not because of that. I just never started to eat pork again or anything like shellfish. So that's never, I think I've had probably a bite of a pizza that had a pepperoni on it, but it wasn't a big deal because I wasn't doing it because of there was being a law about it. It was more because I just didn't want to eat pork. And I don't eat red meat anyway. So that's all it was. But
Okay.
yeah. So, but the Sabbath, I remember I was a teenager. I can't remember. I think I was probably about 17 and I wanted to go out with somebody. We were still keeping Sabbath. And my dad was like, well, it's your choice. You know, you have to go and see how you're going to feel about that. And I actually felt so good. I felt like I should feel guilty and I wanted to feel guilty, but I was so happy. I'm like, I'm out on a Saturday. I'm like, look, I would never know this car was out right now, or that guy was walking over there, or this was happening over here. I would never see any of this because I'd be at home, you know? So I remember being really excited about it. And we would go back to keeping Sabbath. Like I kept like broke a couple, but I think by the time I had my daughter, I was 19 and I had moved to California and we just kind of stopped doing a lot of the things. We weren't celebrating Christmas or anything, but by that time we were just, breaking Sabbath, enjoying Saturday. It was awesome, actually.
Awesome. I love that. Now, let me just let the viewers know, in case they're like, well, why doesn't she eat pork or do white meat or red meat?
Yeah.
It is because Erin is a yoga instructor and very in tune with her body. And how would you, I got that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my body actually doesn't really like meat all that much. I'll eat chicken and stuff. I was full vegetarian, but not anymore. I really crave chicken, but no, my body doesn't really like it. I just didn't like the whole process of it all. So that's the reason more than that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Mel, I'm loving this story. That's why I saved you for last, because your story is...
My story's a little different. The food laws, I'm similar to Erin, whereas I still don't eat pork or shellfish or any of that stuff. And I think my body just has developed an intolerance. I wouldn't call it an allergy. I think I just have an intolerance for it because I have tried to reintroduce it into my diet and my body does not like it. So I just choose to stay away from it. And I'm like, okay, so it's not a big deal to me and I just avoid it. And I don't, but what I will say is I'm not as strict about it or stringent as I was when I was in the house. I don't read the ingredients in every single thing I buy and be like, oh, this has monoundiglycerides, I can't eat that. I don't do that. But I don't outright eat a pork chop, for example. So that one, I'm similar to Erin in that aspect. But as far as keeping the Sabbath, actually, my story with that is, and maybe it was because I was excommunicated and it was so shortly after leaving. Justin and I moved to Michigan within a few weeks of getting excommunicated, we moved back to Michigan, and I had started a job. It was at Burger King, and I didn't last very long at this job because the very first Saturday I was scheduled, I literally had an all-out panic attack, thinking, if I go to work, I'm going to burn in hell. If I work on this Saturday, I am going to burn in hell. To the point where I had to call them crying, saying, please take me off the schedule. I can't do this. And I didn't really recognize it as like a panic attack, PTSD type thing at the moment. But it definitely, in hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, that was from the brainwashing. And I was still convinced I was going to burn in hell and die if I worked on that day. So I ended up quitting the whole job because of the way I overreacted on that day.
But now, were you able to go and do other things, like possibly go to the store or?
No, even after I was married to Mike for years, I didn't shop on the Sabbath. Still didn't do any of that stuff. I would say I kind of remember I was probably married to Mike for quite a few years before I even went shopping on a Saturday. Now I don't even really think twice about it. Now I avoid Saturdays because it's the busiest shopping day, and I just don't like to be in the store when there's that many people.
Yeah. Same.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. All right. Here's another two-part question. Erin, I'm going to say both parts. Take your time in how you answer them. So, being in a cult and the cult that we were in, did it affect how you raised your children when it came to religion? I'm gonna let you answer that first, and then I'll go on to the second part.
Okay. So yeah, like when I had my daughter, she would never even remember, like we were doing the same things. There wasn't a lot of religion in our lives. There was just like not celebrating Christmas and kind of keeping the same things and like all the holidays and, kind of following along the same path in a way, but not really. We didn't belong to anything. And I think that like as I started to, because it does take some time to undo, like Melody was saying, like it does take time. You can't just jump in, you can, but you might have to detox from that then later. So you do have to take your time, like getting back to a place where you kind of feel some normalcy to move on to other things. But I never really wanted to, I guess, have my children be part of any religion because I had been part of a few religions, like a couple religions before the House of Yahweh as well. They weren't very culty, they were just more normal, but we had kind of hopped around to different things a lot. And I didn't really want that. I think I had kind of washed my hands of religion. I knew that for sure, but I just wanted to know, what could be, or maybe like more knowledge, or just really missed that part of it. I missed that. But I never really, I think the religion that my children ended up growing up with was just nature, like just respecting nature, that God's in the earth and everything that grows and everything that is. And I think it just kind of became more of a spiritual thing and kind of led them into doing whatever they want to do. So we never really had anything concrete. It was just kind of whatever you want to do is okay, as long as it's not hurting anybody.
The love in the creation.
Yes, exactly.
So, let me ask you this then. Did your children ever come up to you and say, hey, Mom, we want to go with so-and-so to Sunday school or to a church event? And if so, how did you handle that?
No, that's never happened. I don't think the circle that I have around me is very religious anyway. So we never, and my kids are in public schools, so we never really ran into anybody where we had to deal with that. If they had wanted to, absolutely. Like my son, when he was younger, we were at a thrift store and there was a Bible and he wanted to buy it. I bought it for him. It was like, whatever you want to do is totally fine. And none of them are religious at all, but they're very kind-hearted people. Like my children are so great, and they're not, none of us go to any type of church, but if they wanted to do that, I would be fine with that. I would try to watch it a little bit, make sure they're all right, and
make sure it's not a cult.
Yeah, and make sure it's not a cult. But other than that, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, I can understand that. All right, Gary, you are look at you, just way too quiet over here. I should have just put you on a round table with guys, huh? Hey, Gary, what about you? We know that you have a son.
I do.
And how did you handle your religion with him as he was growing up? And then also the second part to the question.
As he was growing up, I've always had more of a spiritual kind of belief as well. I do pray, but I don't really pray to anything more than the universe kind of. I don't really pray to anyone specific. It's more just a universal kind of thing, I guess, just the spirituality. But I've always just kind of allowed him to develop his own opinions, and I just try to teach him to be kind. Basically, I do take some of the principles from the Bible as, golden rule, and that's kind of what I live my life by. I figure if I live my life like that, I can't end up in too bad of a place. So that's just kind of always how I've treated him. With I've never pushed anything on him, and the same, he's never really wanted to go to any kind of church or anything. And I've always not really avoided church, but just organized religion in itself just kind of turns me off. And I remember I went a few years back, I went to it was a funeral at one of these like new age Christian, like they've got like a rock band, and it was some of it was okay, but some of it got some really culty vibes, and it just wasn't really cool. So that was the last time I went to a church. But yeah, as far as Avery goes, my son goes, just kind of, I wanted to let him make his own decisions. I've educated him. I actually went to the school I went to, Grange College, is a Methodist school. We were required to take so many religious courses, and I worked at that college. I did maintenance work there, so I just kind of took as many classes as I wanted to. It was interested in me, and the religion classes really interested me. Just all the different religions, and so I educated myself on it, and I've educated him on it, and just kind of allowed him to make his own decisions on it.
So let me say this, Gary, you are from the South.
I am.
And it is no secret that in the South, there is a church on every corner.
I live in the Holy City.
Yes. Yes. And
Austin is known as the Holy City.
Yeah. I know that you spent a lot of time in Georgia.
I did. Yep.
And let's face it, Georgia, I think, is the capital of the Bible Belt.
It is the buckle of the Bible Belt. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. So I guess the question that I'm asking you is what type of influence did you have on your son that he wasn't invited to Wednesday church or to the church carnival or to the spring fling or anything like that? Were you open and honest about your experience in the house?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's always known everything. I've always been very, we've got a very open relationship. He knows everything. As he grew up, he went to birthday parties and roller skating things and events like that, but as far as like wanting to go to Sunday school or anything like that, no, he never. I don't know if he just never had any desire to do it, or if he just knew that it might bother me, so he didn't ever bring it up. He's a very kind-hearted kid, so he would do that. Just if he thought it would bother me, he would probably not do it. So
I can see that. Mel, you ready?
For me, I think that that was a hard one for me, but I kind of similar. I didn't want to put really any limitations on what my kids chose to believe, but I did, when they were very young, I did pray with them. Like before, when I would tuck them into bed, I would pray with them. So I kind of taught them some semblance of prayer when they were quite young. As they got older, we kind of just drifted away from that naturally. And I think that's somewhat natural with parents anyway, because it's kind of a thing with that. It becomes a real personal thing. And if your kids are going to continue to pray, it's really their thing to do then at that point. But as far as like Christmas and stuff, at first we didn't celebrate Christmas. And then as I reintroduced Christmas, I was real kind of nervous about it because I think my kids were a little confused. Like, we didn't do Christmas and now we're going to do Christmas, and what's going on, Mom? I don't know what this is. And so when I reintroduced it, even though I knew and I had to make it clear that Christ wasn't born on December 25th, before we could open presents, I made them watch the movie of the birth of Christ, because I'm like, well, this has got to be a little bit about something religious, and it's not just about all, paganism and getting presents. So I'm going to make it so I did this weird my own special version of what I thought might work, which my kids to this day will still be like, Mom, I don't know why you tortured us with watching that movie before we had to open presents. And I'm like, well, it just felt like the right thing for me to do at the time. And as far as my kids I can only remember one of my kids ever being invited to something religious when they were younger, and that was my youngest son was invited to go to church with a good friend of his whose dad happened to be a preacher, and he went, and then he also went to a church youth group thing too, and he was maybe in 6th grade or something like that, and I remember he only went one time, and then he came home and he said, well, and I said, well, did you have fun? He goes, yeah, kind of it, but it was kind of weird too, Mom. And I'm like, well, do you want to go back? And he goes, nah, not really. I'm like, okay, that's kind of your choice, whatever you want to do. And and that's the way he felt about it. He was invited one time by one friend, and I don't think the other two, as I remember, were ever invited anywhere to do anything. But I do remember my kids having a very weird reaction when at a funeral where they were doing the rosary thing where they kept saying the same prayer over and over again. I think it was the Hail Mary or something. And I could tell, I'm looking at my kids and they're trying not to laugh, but they're looking at me like, what's going on here? And then when we left, Eric, my oldest, says, was I the only one who felt like we were in a time warp or something? What was that about?
Wow.
He was like, that was really weird, Mom. What was that? And I'm like, well, it's just like a ritual thing that Catholics do. They just say the same prayer over and over again. He goes, well, don't you think that he probably heard it the first time?
You gotta love Eric. You gotta love Eric. Straight to the point. You know, you bring that up about Christmas. My thing is Easter. I struggle with Easter. I have always struggled with Easter. Christmas, you know, I'm just like, whatever. He wasn't born then. I could care less. You know, we're going to do gifts. We're not going to do gifts. It depends. Do I have money that year? I mean, it was just, you know, how we did. Christmas was a big deal. For me, it's Easter. I, to this day, struggle with Easter because of the meaning behind it and then the eggs and all of that. But let me say this, that started way before the House of Yahweh. My maternal grandmother, she didn't do Easter. And so I was young when she would tell me why she didn't. But then flip it around, I have grandbabies. They like to Easter egg hunt. They like baskets. Well, if you know me as a grandmother in any way, you know they want the moon. Grams is grabbing the moon for them. So like you, Melody, okay, we're going to do Easter. And these poor babies, my grandbabies are going to be 5 and 3. Okay, what do they know, right? But I can tell you, they know what happened to the Savior, what he went through, that the eggs aren't supposed to be there. Bunnies don't lay chocolate eggs, you know? And they're just they're going, Grams, can we just go? I mean, what's on with this? So I get that, Melody. I'm torn. I'm conflicted.
Yeah, I probably sent some mixed messages.
Yeah.
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 And my kids never believed in Santa Claus. Like by the time we started celebrating Christmas, my partner now, who's so wonderful, but he thought that was the meanest thing in the world. He's like, your children never had the magic of Santa Claus. I'm like, yeah, but we believed in fairies.
I love it.
You know, but Erin brings up a good point, guys. Who did not teach their kids about Santa Claus and Easter bunnies? Raise your hand.
No. No Easter bunny, no Santa Claus.
Did you guys watch Tinkerbell and did you clap really hard when she died? Did you watch Mickey Mouse?
Yes.
You know, the Beast, were you like, here he comes? I mean, so yeah, I can kind of get where people sometimes look and go,
yeah, no, I know. It felt like Santa Claus is more like this thing that's going to come and you're actually lying to them. But like, you know, fairies, you don't really know. Maybe they exist. Maybe they don't. They don't show up at a specific time. It's just like maybe you see a mushroom. Maybe there's a fairy there. Maybe there's not. I'm just kidding, guys. Like, seriously, I'm not crazy. But it's just nice to believe in something. You know what I mean?
Let me add this to your thing. I'm not kidding, unlike Erin. I've always said to my wonderful husband, Philip, I've always went, well, you know, maybe it was true at one point. He was like, oh, I mean, why would you say that? And I said, well, they had to have come from somewhere. There's a fable about them somewhere. And all make-believe somewhere is real, right?
Yeah.
This is Philip's look to me.
Yes,
that
dear.
looks like Joe's face. You look just like Joe, who's my partner. You look just like him when you make that face.
And I will.
Yes, dear.
I will add to this that similar to what you were saying, Autumn, is that even before I was in the House of Yahweh, I remember as a child finding out there was no Santa and then questioning whether or not there was a creator and saying, I'm never going to lie to my kids like that. So there was this struggle that I had in my own childhood where it's like, well, if there's no Santa, is there no God?
Right.
So I didn't want to give my kids that confusion. So that was part of the reason that I also didn't do the Santa thing.
My dad, that's exactly what he said to us, because I remember my sister asked early, because we didn't believe in Santa Claus either. If there was a time in my life where I did, I don't remember it, because Sarah, my sister, was really young, like 2 or 3, and asked my dad, and she's a couple years younger than I am, is Santa Claus real? And we had only celebrated well, I was young, but my dad didn't celebrate Christmas then either. So well before the Helps Yahweh, but we only had a couple enough to kind of know everything, like Santa Claus and stuff like that. My dad's like, she's asking the question and I'm not going to lie to her, because I don't want her to feel like I'm lying to her about God and everything else. So
Right.
no, there's no Santa Claus. So we grew up with that as well. I never had really Santa Claus either. So it wasn't anything that I needed. Like, it wasn't anything that I thought my kids were going to miss, you know?
Well, Gary, did you grow up believing in Santa Claus?
I don't remember ever celebrating Christmas. I mean, I was 9 when we came to the House Yahweh, but I don't remember really before that. I don't remember any Christmases or anything. I know we did celebrate them, up to that point, because, my mom went to church. I don't remember ever my dad going to church, but me and my sisters would go to church every Sunday. I remember that. I remember hiding, trying to get out of it, because I remember thinking my dad didn't have to go. Why do I have to go? And but as far as the holidays and stuff go with my son, it was never really a big deal to me, because I didn't do it. So,
right.
But I also always felt left out, as a kid growing up. All my friends at school, they've all got Christmas and, everything. And I always just kind of felt like cheated a little bit. And so I just kind of wanted my kid to have a normal life. And so he knew, he knows all this. He knew, the meaning of Christmas. And, I was just always honest with him about it. And that's how
So before we start the next question I just want you to know we're down to 6 minutes. So we're probably about 2 minutes per person for the next one.
Okay.
For the last one.
Last question. I can't believe we made him through it all. Did you guys have any PTSD or triggers after leaving? Melody?
I would say mine was the one that I already shared, so I can kind of skip it, which was basically the panic attack that I had about working on the Sabbath. That was my biggest trigger that I remember experiencing, and I can look back and say, yeah, that was definitely a PTSD type reaction.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Gary?
I do still have, PTSD kind of issues, but I've seen a counselor for years, just if nothing else, just for somebody to talk to about it. And, we've kind of defined the triggers, and, it's been a while. I don't tend to get set off very often anymore, but just certain little things. I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, it's just random things out of the blue sometimes will set it off.
Like, have any of you heard Israel Hawkins' voice? That'll be a trigger for me.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Because I'm like, whoa, I hear it, and I'm like,
that's more anger than anything else, honestly.
Yeah. And Erin, what about you? Do you have any PTSD or trigger moments since leaving?
I think just like Gary said, there's probably stuff that comes up here and there. And yes, if I hear like a Southern man preaching, I'm like, not like Texan, or you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, but no, like I went to a funeral one time, and the preacher, it was my best friend's funeral, who I had before the House of Yahweh, who passed away when I was about 24. And I spoke at her funeral, and the preacher came over afterwards, and he had like, I don't know, a ring on every finger with big jewels, and like he was like big cufflinks, and I don't, there's something about him, and he was trying to like ask me if I wanted to like join their church and I just felt like, get away from me, like there's something about you there, I don't know what it is, but he was making me so nervous and so uncomfortable. That's the only real feeling that I have, or maybe that might feel like that, but yeah, no, nothing specific. But I think just the thought of joining another religious place or something like that really brought it up in me. I don't think I ever could have joined a church or anything like that. I think I would have been looking around too much, too skeptical, too much like what is this,
Yep.
So
yeah. Hey, I go to church. That's no secret. I do. But my husband has to, but I go when I want to go, how I want to go, and who I want to talk to when I go. And
Yeah.
the good thing about it is I'm such a small church, they understand it. But my
Yeah.
husband has to constantly remind me, you know, we're all sinners in a room full of sinners. And there are times because he just knows that I trigger. So I completely get what you're saying. Erin, Melody, and Gary, thank you so much for this roundtable and hopefully answering some questions that have been asked to us and people have been wondering. If there are people watching who have more questions or would like something explained more in detail, message either Melody or myself. I mean, even if you're more comfortable messaging Erin or Gary, message us, ask us if we need to do a second part to this roundtable. We absolutely will. You know, four of us have nothing to hide. Erin, Gary, thank you so much for doing
Absolutely.
this.
Thank you.
We appreciate you guys.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Of course. I'd like to remind everybody to like, share, subscribe, and please, 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 this is so very important. Show love to Erin and Gary and Mel and just let them know
And
how
Autumn.
and me. Let them know how loved and important they are. And please, by all means, if you need to reach out to any of us or you need help, to all four people on these screens, message us.
Yep.
No questions asked. We've got your back.
Yes.
100%.
100%.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You guys have a fabulous day. And until next time, and remember, if you want a part 2, let us know.
Okay. Bye.